Alright, what is up, guys? My name's PVM Vertigo, and welcome back to Kerbal Colonization. And in this episode, we're going to be continuing the old Duna adventure, which we started last episode. And basically, we are going to land as close as possible to the science vessel that we landed down there, which is stranded. And whoever was piloting it, I'm pretty sure it's Bill Kerman, is probably dead. So the lifeless vessel will have to be rescued. Well, we're not going to rescue it, we're going to rescue the science that's inside of it, which is probably more important than the ship itself. It's like probably going to be 400 to 500 science. Definitely need to take it and bring it back to Kerbin. And for that, if you remember last episode, we sent up a nice space vessel that actually has a lot of Delta V in the upper stage. So this right here should be able to land on Duna and get back to Kerbin pretty easily. The only factor is that it might be hard to actually land on Duna because landing on it's easy, but maneuvering into the right position to actually land near a target takes a lot more Delta V unless you get really lucky. And so here we are, coming up for not really a re-entry, it's an entry. And I'm trying to angle myself to point more downwards because we're about to overshoot our target a little bit. Because it might not seem like that, but we are going to overshoot it by a lot if we don't make something happen now. I'm thinking about using my engines. Yeah, I'm going to use my engines here. I might overheat something. That's not going to be good. Oh, this is going to be really close. How are we going to overheat something? It's going to be close. This might be rest in peace landing gear and rest in peace batteries. But I think we're getting over the worst of it. We are landing significantly far away from the actual target. This is going to be a problem. And we're just going to cancel out some more velocity using our engine. And yeah, our target's way over there. So this is kind of a problem. So as we're starting to land, we run into an issue. You may know what it is. KSP.exe has stopped working. That's definitely not good. So I had to restart my game. And I'll just start the landing from where I thought the approximate place was. So I did it again. Kind of cheaty. I almost used a quick save there, but it was more or less just the actual game saving it for me because it crashed. But I was able to make a more accurate landing due to the fact that and yeah, Bill Kerman died of oxygen deprivation. I don't know if it's a bug, but it doesn't actually tell you if they're dead until you get within the vicinity, the 2.5 kilometer distance that it renders the objects at. But yeah, I'm actually on this little segment here. I couldn't actually run it in 32-bit, so I had to use the 64-bit workaround, the community workaround for this. So it's a little bit buggy. Hopefully I won't have to use it ever again because I do not like 64-bit. It messes up the buttons and stuff. It's just not that fun. But here we are landing, and landing is fun. And we're coming. It's actually a very cautious landing because I don't want to break anything. Very delicate spacecraft. It's very large, very heavy, and it's not like a small lander where you can just like knock it across the surface and it'll be fine. No, this thing will explode at the slightest touch of one of its landing legs breaking. And here we are, coming down for a land, and landed. There it is. And here's Jebediah. Jebediah Kerman is flying across to the Explorer 3. About to collect some science. And I had just enough EVA propellant because I used 2.5 on the way there. Or I meant 2.2 on the way there, and I used a little bit more on the way back. So, as long as we landed a little bit close to it, it's fine. Especially since on Duna you can fly. It's basically the largest planet that you can successfully jetpack on, because if you jetpack upwards, you have a thrust to weight ratio of something a little bit higher than 1. So if you let go of shift, you basically start falling out of the sky. So it takes a little bit of effort on learning how to jetpack on Duna, but you can do it with enough practice. I'm just going to land on the top of the nose cone here. It's just an abandoned old thing. Yeah, I'm going to take some data. There it is. And we'll head on back to the main spacecraft now. So here we are, flying back to the Lifeboat 1. That's what it's called. And I'm feeling pretty confident about this because we got the data. All we need to do is fly back home. And that should be good, but we did actually use a considerable amount of Delta V getting ourselves positioned where we are now. It's a lot harder to land on a target than, you know, landing on a actual, just a regular planetary surface. It actually took us a lot of Delta V to actually do our deceleration burn. So oh my gosh. Apparently you can climb. If you press F, you can climb up something. I didn't know that. Apparently, if you're on a slanted surface, you can just scale up the entire thing without a ladder. That's helpful. I don't know if a mod adds that or if it's a regular stock. I have to look into that. But here we go. Onwards. And we are lifting off. Remember, we gotta go straight in there. We gotta go straight up. Because if we don't, if we tilt over the slightest bit, which I actually did in here, you will basically turn yourself and flip yourself all the way around and you won't be able to actually do anything. Now, we got a considerable amount of Delta V here, but a lot of it's going to have to happen or have to be used on getting up into orbit here. Now, we want to get as much height as possible since we can't actually turn the atmosphere good with this thing. I'm going to try to nudge it over a little bit, but it's not going to be that easy. So I'm thinking that maybe like, 5,000 meters up, we can probably start turning up here a little bit. Considering that, we're getting a lot of speed going up, straight up. I'm trying to turn it a little bit, nudging it. It's going okay. If you nudge it a little bit more, up, uncontrollable, and we have an issue. So I shut down the engine, and I try to make a nice little, it's not really a cheat, but it's kind of like a time warp thing, but it's using a quick save. So I can turn around and actually get this thing pointed in the right direction. And it turns out that it works. I was able to actually cancel out the velocity using a quick save. So that's a nifty little thing I found out how to do. I didn't actually think that was going to work, because I've never done that before. So here we are. We actually wasted a ton of Delta V on that turnaround thing, so it might actually cripple some of our mission. I'm starting to actually worry, because that wasted around 100 to 200, maybe even 300 due to atmospheric drag that we encountered and messed up. So that's not the best thing for our mission, what just happened there. Remember, kids, never make a wide base lander flip around and do an atmosphere. That's not a good thing to do. And we're coming up on the end of our fuel here in a little bit. But remember that the smaller the fuel, the higher the thrust ratio is, and the higher the Delta V. So we still have a lot of Delta V, but we're still running out of fuel very fast. We only have a minute and a little bit, minute and 24 seconds of burn time. That's not a lot of time at all. This maneuver right here is going to take a little bit only. Take a little bit. I'm trying to minimize the periapsis so I don't waste too much Delta V. And let's see what we got here. Nice maneuver. No, yeah, we're out of the atmosphere now, so this should be fine. We just need to get up to the burn now, and then we should be good. This whole mission is very, very taxing on Delta V because there's so many things that have to be extremely precise. The liftoff has to be precise. The landing has to be precise. It all takes more Delta V when you can't just land somewhere random. That's one of the reasons why I built this Lifeboat 1 to have so much Delta V. And the Delta V is showing here because we are heading into orbit around Duna. We have successfully taken the data up into orbit from the surface. So this is nice. And from the looks of it, this Delta V should be enough to get us back to Kerbal. Although I don't know if it's going to be enough to land. Because, well, one of the reasons is this, and another one of the reasons is, apparently 64-bit, the 64-bit workaround I've been using, didn't actually want to allow us to unset targets of the Explorer 3, and it also didn't allow us to use the parachute. If you see, the parachute is not in the staging when we go back before we switch over to a different view. And we can't actually use the parachute, so that's not very good. So we might have to actually have another vessel come up and grab it from Kerbal orbit, which is going to have to... This is going to be a really sensitive mission, honestly. So I actually found a very inefficient path to Kerbal, or it's not really inefficient, but it's just a path that I happen to have now. And I'm burning now. Let's see what we got here. I just kind of guessed it. I was going to either leave it in orbit and use the protractor, but it just so happens that it aligned perfectly for me to actually get a nice little inefficient burn-in. You'll see what I mean in a second. So we are burning on our way to Kerbal, and we're going to run out of fuel soon. And we have enough to actually get there, but will we have enough to actually circularize or do something at Kerbal that will actually be able to get into orbit? That's the real question. And you'll see, yeah, we have to kind of curve in a little bit and gain some speed to catch up to Kerbal, but that's okay. It's still a pretty good transfer. Oh yeah, and I added a Kerbal attachment system. Those are the inventories. It's really buggy though because I have it in 64-bit right now. But there it is. Once we get enough technology, we can start setting up bases, and we'll be able to actually attach it together with fuel lines. So that's nice. We'll be able to make nice, nice bases, nice space stations with Kerbal attachment system. But let's skip over the next thing we did. So on our way back to Kerbal, we entered a problem, or we encountered a problem, is what I'm saying. We had the solar panels enabled, and there was mildly dangerous overheating detected, and it closed all my solar panels. Now, of course, we need solar panels to live. Jebediah Kerbal will die without electricity, so I start time warping a little bit to let the overheat go down. Electric charge is 0, so I came out. I decided, how much overheat would a one solar panel generate? It turns out that one solar panel is actually negligible at most, and it actually still results in waste heat going down. Now, waste heat is from KSP Interstellar command. I don't know how to use that mod because that's far in the future in the tech tree, so I'm not even going to acknowledge it right now. But in that mod, there's actually waste heat, and you need radiators to radiate that heat due to like nuclear reactors and stuff being used. But this is a nuisance for me because I have just solar panels, and they're overheating everything. So apparently the actual ship can radiate enough heat for one solar panel to be used, and one solar panel is enough to actually run every one of the ship's systems. That's okay. Just a minor nuisance. Yeah, there's me sailing with my one solar panel, and I need to aim at the sun every now and then. So as we're coming up on Kerbal, I encounter a problem. We are going really, really fast in comparison to Kerbal. So the problem is, how are we actually going to slow down? Number one, we don't actually have a parachute, so to say, because 64-bit messed up my parachute. And number two, we don't have enough delta V to slow down. I'm trying to make like a little thing here. It says that I'm going to be going, hopefully it's going to be going close to Kerbal. That's the one I hope for, but I know it's going to probably be the moon, yeah. That's the one. But either or, we're not going to have enough delta V to slow down, so what's the point? I'm going to try to make it so that my orbit is easy to capture, because we're going to have to send up a second spacecraft to actually rescue the science. Now, this may seem like just overcomplicated stuff, but it's just due to the fact that I messed up a little bit with the parachute. I would just aerobrake in the atmosphere, but I can't because we don't have a parachute to actually land with, so there's no point. So I'm just going to be floating around here for a second while we prepare a rescue ship, the second one of its kind. So here we are, getting ready to launch our vessel, and we're actually using the Lifeboat 1 again. I tried to make a custom spacecraft, but I decided Nah, we don't really need it. I was going to try to make it with a claw, but it turns out we haven't actually unlocked the claw yet, curiously enough. So we're just using Lifeboat 1 again. What we're going to do is we're going to do a orbital rendezvous with this extremely fast spacecraft. And we're going to come up close to it, park it, and we're going to rescue Jebediah Kerman out of the capsule. He's going to take the science with him and go into the second command module, and then we'll fly home. That's the basis of my plan, to actually get Jebediah home with the science intact. Now keep in mind, this is actually going to be a very, very hard maneuver to do, because, I mean, if you know what a gravity assist is, basically you fly around from interplanetary space, fly past an orbital body, and if you time it good enough, you can actually get a nice little boost in your orbital speed. And unintentionally, I created a gravity boost that makes the orbit of the Lifeboat 1 go way past Duna, so it's going to take a lot of Delta V to actually get to it. So that makes rendezvousing with this thing even more difficult. Oh, by the way, I'm not actually going to be able to meet up with it in the Kerbal system, or the Kerbin system, I mean, because it's going way too fast. By the time I reach the periapsis, the low point of the Lifeboat 1, we're going to be not even there yet. Or they're going to be far away, is what I'm saying. By the time we get to our apoapsis, which will be their periapsis, they're going to be long gone. Because they are going at interplanetary speeds. They're going to be going super fast. And our only actual chance to meet up with them is to get out into interplanetary orbit and hope we can actually set up a nice orbital rendezvous. Now, I have docked before, and I have orbital rendezvous before, but I have actually never docked or orbital rendezvoused in Kerbal orbit, or the solar orbit. So this is going to be difficult. This is going to be my first time actually getting somewhere in a place that is harder to actually rendezvous in than Kerbin. Like Kerbin rendezvous, people say that docking is pretty hard. Yeah, it is pretty hard. But if you think about it, there's a lot more room for error in Kerbal orbit due to the fact that there's so much space to actually move in. It's harder, and it takes a longer time too, so if you mess up the first time, you can't do it again for a longer time, and that's going to be hard because we have life support too. We have limited amounts of orbit around the sun, or Kerbal, or whatever. So we have to do this right in as little time as possible, so that's going to be a challenge. So just as we planned, we're coming down, and Lifeboat 1, speeding past like a bullet, interplanetary speeds, flies right on by. It's a shame we didn't have enough Delta V to actually slow that thing down. It would be a whole lot easier to recover the science, but here we are starting the transfer. Basically, we're going to be trying to match orbits as much as possible with this burn. And the goal of this is to actually bring our speeds close together and our orbits close together. So it just eliminates variables, and that means that we're basically going to be traveling on the same quote-unquote rail as the other spacecraft. And the only thing that'll need to change is if we change a little few meters per second velocity here and there, on the next orbit around we'll actually meet up with it. And if we're on the same exact rail, an accurate orbit, that's why I call it a rail, because it's an accurate orbit, like the same kind, we will actually be able to create points along the orbit that we can meet up within like a few meters. That is the goal. So this burn has to be really, really precise, and it can set everything in motion. Theoretically, if we do this perfect, we'll stay the same distance away from the Lifeboat 1 as we are now. Because we'd be going the same speed, we'd be going the same orbit, and everything would be good. We'd say this far away, however far that away that is, like a few 100,000 kilometers. I'm not sure if it's that much, but we say that far away. And then once we're that far away and we have that set up, we can actually change it. And that's what we want. So we're coming at the end of our burn here. Let's see how things turned out. And we actually have a lot of Delta V left, honestly. And yeah, look at that. We're pretty right on. Yeah. We're looking pretty good here with our accuracy of matching orbits. So I'm just jumping to a spot where we're actually going to be making a correction burn. Now, you need multiple correction burns to actually perform an orbital rendezvous. So we're making one right now, and it's basically going to make our orbit a little bit more like the Lifeboat 1. Well, actually, both spacecrafts are called the Lifeboat 1, but the original one that went to Duna, we're going to be trying to match orbits a little bit easier, or a little bit more. and set up a nice intercept if we can. This is gonna be a rough version, so we should come within like, I don't know, like hundreds of kilometers or so. That should be the goal. And then after that, we'll keep on getting closer and closer to different correction burns until we're within meters. So here we are. We finished our little correction burn here, trying to make it as accurate as possible because it matters. And see, we have a separation of only a little bit. So that's good for now. Let's take a long orbit around. This can take a few minutes. I'm going to skip ahead, and we will see what we have next. So here we are. Our intersect is coming up. And when we get close enough, I'm going to try to actually burn towards the object to bring it a little bit closer. Set up a nice little intercept so that we can actually cancel velocities at a reasonable distance. So that little pink marker means that we're pointing straight at the object, so I'm going to go there and I'll get closer in relative, and then it should bring our separation a little bit closer. And that's what we want. So we're bringing it down, using the burn. We're aiming directly at the actual target, keep in mind, to do this. We're going to cut our engines here because we're limiting our actual efficiency by doing this. We're just trying to make it so that we can do this as quickly as possible, because if not, we have to make one correction burn, and we have to fly all the way around, and we don't have enough life support for that. So we're going to have to try to take a slightly more inefficient route in burning straight towards the object, and then actually canceling velocities after it. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Okay, so here we are floating through space with our buddy Lifeboat 1, within a few hundred kilometers or a few thousand kilometers, I don't know which. But we are canceling out our target velocity. If you see there on the actual HUD, that we are actually traveling at a whole lot of different speed than the actual target is. The target right now is Lifeboat 1. We need to change our velocity 200 meters per second. Is that what it says? Yep. We have to change it that much in order to actually bring it down. And you can see that it'll have a target position at intersect 1, because now our orbit is almost completely exact. If we cancel out our orbit to 0 meters per second, our target speed, that will make our orbits perfectly synchronous, and we can actually tweak that to actually bring ourselves to a nice intercept. So I'm actually going to, oh, what is this? Separation of only 324 kilometers. That's getting better. But we actually can tweak that further. So here we are floating through space yet again, and we are doing some final adjustments here, burning straight towards the object, because now that our orbits are completely aligned, we can do this easily. And, well, our separation in this one is going to be around 1 kilometer only. That's crazy. If we get that close, it'll be pretty much the end goal for getting the science back. So I think this approach distance is actually pretty good. Let's warp to it. So here we are coming up over here. When we actually get to the intersect, you're going to want to cancel out your velocity immediately, because if you do anything else burning towards it, you're just going to mess everything up. Just cancel out your velocity, stay calm, and work from there. Because if you cancel out your velocity, you're moving at a velocity of 0 in comparison to your target vessel, which in this case is my science running one. And if it's at 0, nothing's going to happen. They're going to stay, well, quote-unquote stationary. They're really moving really, really fast around the sun, but they're stationary in comparison to each other. So Jebediah can get out of Lifeboat 1, rescue the science, and bring it back to the other space vessel. And when he's flying between them, it'll just be like stationary little waypoints for him. So right now we're approaching it. You can see that the Lifeboat 1 is getting really, really close. In fact, it's getting a little bit close for comfort. Better start slowing down here. Yeah, it's within only a few meters here. Let's just park it here, honestly. And then we'll bring out Jebediah. So we're switching over to the vessel using left bracket, or right bracket. You can do that if it's within 2.5 kilometers. Jebediah's going to get out, take the science, activate his rocket pack, and look, there it is. His savior. He would have died out in space due to lack of oxygen, lack of nice air, if this space vessel wouldn't have came. And here's his hope of getting back to Kerbal. And, well, he's got a lot of science with him, too. This science is going to fuel our next few episodes, because it advances our space program. We need it. So here it is, the space vessel that he found. I'm actually proud of this. This is the first time ever doing an orbital rendezvous in Kerbal orbit. I actually really like this. I've done a million dockings, a million orbital rendezvous in Kerbal, but this is the first one in solar orbit that I actually, this is nice. Now here's this isn't the main challenge, but it's still a challenge. Getting back to Kerbal. How are we gonna do it? I'm actually just gonna put down a rough maneuver, see if I can, just make something happen. And it turns out that if we mess with the orbit a little bit, we actually can make something happen. Look at that. Oh, wait. Hey, we can actually intercept with Kerbal if we do that. So we actually have a very, very lucky position here. We actually don't have to use a regular transfer. You can use a custom transfer that's inefficient, but hey, it's fast. So here's a shot of us doing that maneuver. And, well, this is our first step on getting home. Once we get in Kerbal's sphere of influence, or the Kerbal sphere of influence, we should be set. We got 2,000 meters per second left of delta V. That's way more than we'll ever need. I mean, we have a heat shield on this thing too, so we can basically just plunge straight into the Kerbal atmosphere, and we should be fine. So this is pretty much the end game of this Duna mission that's taken us so long due to lots of failures, and it's going to end up being a success in the end. Even with rescuing Jebediah, even though Bill died. 2 out of 3 Kerbal surviving is a pretty good ratio. So we need to edit our final approach. And I choose a path that brings us to the left of Kerbal, respectively, and it's going to land us right in the middle of the light side of Kerbal. Just so we can have the solar panels most of the way and then just ditch them right at the end. That's our plan. And, well, we have a lot of Delta V left and we're not even really going to use it. So let's go over to the maneuver node and do our final maneuver before we actually get home. And there's actually a button. I didn't want to use it because you can warp to maneuver now. I didn't want to use it, but it actually has an allowance of 3 minutes. So it actually doesn't matter because you have to burn before your actual maneuver node. I thought that it was going to go straight to it, but no. Squad programmed this good, and it actually delivers you to a point before your maneuver node, which I like. Makes it very useful as someone who puts down a lot of these. And 1 second burn. There it is. That's all you need in the vastness of space. Thousands of kilometers can be decided by only a few meters per second delta V. And here we are, coming in hot. Not really hot yet. It'll be very hot in the atmosphere, but not yet. And we're coming up. Kerbal alarm clock is limiting my warp right now. Oh, there it goes. There it goes. I can see home from here. At this point in game, I was starting to freak out a little bit because our last spacecraft had a bug with the parachute and it would not deploy, and that's one of the reasons why I couldn't just throw it into the atmosphere. But nope, I'm fairly certain that this one is just gonna do just fine. So thank you guys for watching. I apologize for this being such a long video. I'm sure that like 50% of people who were going to watch this video probably aren't going to watch it due to the fact that it's almost half an hour long. Nobody wants to spend their time doing that. But I thought it was a pretty interesting episode. And here's a final shot of the Kerbals returning to home. And they actually almost overheated. But almost does not mean you actually did overheat. And they got the parachute to help them. Or deliver them to the ocean. And the science will be preserved. So all in all, we end up landing. This mission to get the science is a success. No matter what failures we had, getting the science was at least a success. And you can see the fruits of this here. We got a few different nodes. We got the fuel systems because they have a fuel connector port, which will make it easier to actually transfer fuel between different spacecrafts. That'll be good for, bases and space stations, orbital fuel spots, and we just have that just to make things easier for us. And then we got a bunch of other nodes that you don't really need to see this right now. I got the docking, and I got some aerodynamic stuff, but I actually took a lot of time figuring this out, so I'm just going to end the episode here. Thank you for watching again, This was an episode of Kerbal Colonization. If you want to watch more, stay tuned. Subscribe to this channel. I post this every 4 to 5 days. Kind of messed up on this one because I was a little bit behind. But new one coming out soon. Stay tuned. This is PVM Vertigo. Peace out.